Welcome back, everyone. This is the 4th episode of the Cotch podcast on the Yak Chat. And yes, thank you, boys. Thank you very much. I almost forgot to introduce you as well. Today we've got the big Newt and the big H. As always, can't get fucking rid of them. Unfortunately, since December, the whole world has decided to get off Johnson's back, as if the election is the end of politics altogether. So we're going to go straight in at Boris today. So, the Prime Minister of this country has asked his aides to keep memos short to make sure that he reads them. And I'll quote, "Box submissions have to be brief if he's going to read it. If they're overly long or overly complex, Dom sends them back with savage comments." This is Dominic Cummings, Boris Johnson's key aide. The guy that people quite rightly feel is running the country. Before I go into the flooding and everything like that that's been going on, I'm just going to start by saying it bloody scares me that we're 2-3 months in and he's already having to ask people to make memos short. That makes me feel like he hasn't been reading them. And that makes me feel like that Dominic Cummings, by sending them back with savage comments, is kind of weakening Boris's position. Sort of makes me feel like Boris Johnson's being used by him.
Yeah, it's kind of like the whole Trump situation again, isn't it?
Yeah, it's exactly. Do you remember, what was it? That the Trump, one of the guys said that they had to start putting graphs and coloured images into the papers because otherwise he just wouldn't read it if it was text-based.
It's like a puppet, isn't it, for the guys behind?
Yeah. And and it's just so out in the open with it now that and the fact that it just says Dom sends them back with savage comments. It's just, I don't know, man. Uncharted territory for me, innit? But basically, everyone's been on his back outside of the media for not going down to the flood hit areas of the country. A lot of people, I went on Twitter, the first thing they said was, why should he? It's not an emergency. So I'm just going to read a couple of the things that have been going on in England and Wales, just to see if you think this is worthy of the Prime Minister paying attention to. Okay, so the other day, there was 600 flood warnings, the most ever, just in England. Yeah, you just think England isn't 600 miles.
Yeah.
Is it 600 squared? I don't know. Probably not. No, it is. No, it would be. Yeah, easy. Fucking stupid, man.
Miles long.
Huh?
600 miles long.
Is it?
I don't know.
Oh, no. There's 600 flood warnings is a lot, still. 600 separate places in England, not Britain. This is just England. 600 flood warnings. The most ever. So when people say to you, oh, we've seen it all before, rah, they haven't. Because they've been breaking a lot of records, as we'll find out. There was a month's rain in 48 hours. Okay, and there was 2 storms in succession. So this is what we've got to remember. There was one last week.
What was that one called? You had Dennis, but who was before that?
What letters before D?
C.
Kiara.
Kiara, that was
Kiara.
it,
Yeah.
That's it.
I was thinking E. Eric.
Wait, was it actually Eric?
No, I just made that up.
No, Ellen. It was Ellen.
Ellen.
Are you sure?
Yeah, because it switches gender.
Yeah, but so why would Ciara have Ellen before it? It'd be Eric, innit?
No. Ciara, Dennis,
Eric,
Gel.
Ellen.
Mate, my brain's not working today.
Mate,
No.
CDE.
Oh, thank God we're just chatting and not making any decisions today, innit? I feel sorry for Boris now. But basically, yeah, so there's 2 storms in succession. One makes everything wet, saturates the ground, so as soon as the rainfall hits, it just sits like it would just sit in a bowl. The River Taff in Pontypridd, the famous area in Wales that looks like you can't say it, but then when you read it, it actually just says Pontypridd.
Yeah.
Was over 5 meters high, and that's the highest in just under 40 years, and it was a meter taller than the famous 79 floods.
That's mad.
So like 4 meters is like 12, 13 foot.
Yeah, I swear, isn't that like that's almost like a tide, like the height of tides. I swear
Big,
they're
yeah,
about like
yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah, yeah. If you're standing on Margate seafront, Brighton seafront, the distance between that and so if you walk up to the edge and underneath where the sea comes up to, that's probably about 5-6
That's
meters. Like that's fucking
For that amount
yeah.
of water inland is
yeah,
crazy.
yeah. It's hard to it is actually quite hard to quantify, but it's the sort of thing that later on you'll sit there and think about it and just be like, right,
Yeah.
fuck you know. 900 tons of water per second flowing down that river. That's 4,000 full bathtubs going past the monitoring station a second. That's not just what's sitting on, that's going past.
Mate, imagine getting caught in that.
Fucking hell, this is what I mean. Like, it's serious, innit? Like, these ain't just like, oh no, I've got to wear me wellies to the shops. Like, and on that note, it's dead serious. There's been 3 deaths. 2 of them actually in Kent, where we haven't had that bad floods, but people fell off boats and stuff like that when the storm come. I'm guessing that's because when the storm hit the north and the west Wales and all of that, it kind of was going on all day. I was seeing it on the news and I was thinking, oh, it looks all right around it. We're in the southeast, by the way. And then all of a sudden it just went bang. So if you're on a little dinghy or something like that just off the coast, you're fucked.
Yeah,
2 people died on the Kent just this week. And people say to me on Twitter, I spoke to a couple people about it, and they said it's just Mother Nature. This is just what happens. When someone was moaning about the fact that the Tories haven't put enough flood defences up, well, not the Tories, just governments in succession. There's nothing we can do except ignore our changing climate, according to everyone. It's something that always catches us off guard, was something that has been repeated on all the BBC News programmes. All of their guests somehow always seem to repeat that it's just normal to be caught off guard by everything. Now, that sounds like someone who's shit at something coming up for excuses as to why they're so shit at it. Do you know what I mean? Oh no, it just catches. Nobody knows when it happens and bullshit.
Yeah.
The weather
like, you
said
can
a
predict
week
it.
earlier.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
And it's the same thing every year. It's like we've never got enough grit.
Yeah,
the
yeah,
roads,
and
like,
it gets
we've
worse and
never
worse and
got-
worse.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Our winters are getting wetter and windier. Oh, there definitely won't be any floods soon then.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But this is where... So you sort of... The BBC saying, oh, it's just what happens, rah, rah, rah. You think, oh, it's a bit of innocent, sort of... That's just the sort of mentality people develop over time. Similar to diseases and illnesses. We build up a mental defence against it where we just don't believe it's going to happen to us. But in 2007, the government did commission a report into flood defences, and a guy called Michael Pitt took it out. And this is the main sort of quote from it. It's like it's a 50-page long report. Goes into absolutely everything to do with the climate, flooding, etc. And I quote, "The scale of the problem is, as we know, likely to get worse. We are not sure whether last summer's events were a direct result of climate change, but we do know that events of these kinds are expected to become more frequent." If you knew me back in the day, I used to always preach about wet and windy, we're getting tropical, etc. No one wanted to listen, of course. "The scientific analysis we have commissioned as part of this review shows that climate change has the potential to cause even more extreme scenarios than were previously considered possible. This country must adapt to increasing flood risk." This was in 2007. Yeah, Labour were in government at the time. And so in the last 2 years in power, and you've also got to bear in mind that this is after the financial crash, you know, when all of the money in the world dried up and suddenly no one could spend anything. Flood defence spending went up 10% in 08-09 and another 10% in 09-010. 010? Wow. And even after the huge 2013 floods, when the Tory were in government, the average increase in spending has been 1.3%. Compared to the 10% under Labour during a financial crash. And as a share of the GDP, spending on it's dropped completely compared to Labour's spending. And we've got to remember how far removed we are from the financial crash. Yeah. Also got to remember that we are the only country in the developed world still feeling punishment and stagnated wages since then. I think like literally 2 weeks ago, our wages hit pre-crash levels, which is absolutely insane when you realise how much richer the really rich have got. Not the I mean the millionaire class. I mean like the billionaires. They'll tell you click on the news and they'll tell you it's expensive for flood defences, etc, etc, etc. Flood defences pay for themselves, according to this. The same report, the 2007 report, went into the costing of flood defences, etc. It costs us, cut it short, it costs us more in money, livelihoods, and actual lives to skimp on it. Yeah? Every £1 that you spend on flood defences saves £8 in the current climate. Yeah. So if it got worse, £1, you'd get £9 back, etc. And it will just keep going up. Yeah. So we should have spent that £1 a long time ago. And if we haven't done it, we need to do it now. Yeah. No excuses. The media, and this goes across the whole media, bar I think The Guardian, The Mirror, and another paper, the media haven't mentioned the Pitt review from 2007. Okay, so you've got people from the government coming onto the BBC. They're talking about the flood defences, and not one of these reporters / journalists is thinking about mentioning a huge report that the government commissioned. Right, that's unprecedented. It's almost similar to the Leveson inquiry, where the media pretend it was about everything but them, etc. So that they've given more airtime to people slandering Corbyn for going to visit victims of the floods than they have actually talking about why and how we can stop it. It absolutely baffles me that we're 3 months into a new government and people are still spending their whole airtime going at Corbyn for like all he's doing.
It's almost like what more do you want now? Do you know what I mean?
Like he's always done that. Yeah. So I almost sort of feel like what's your point? Yeah. When you slander him, like what damage is he doing by going and giving talks to these people and like boosting their morale, giving them advice and shit like that? Like that should be standard political practice, innit? Whilst our leader Boris Johnson has actually been invisible. So the leader of this party and government, this government has been in power for 10 years, He might be leader of a new mandate, but he's not leader of a new government. And this government started 294 flood defence projects as part of an election promise in 2010. Elect us and we'll sort all of that out. They started 294, gave them initial funding, and then haven't funded it since. These local councils have received no money for 294 flood defences. If 294 of these areas had bad floods, a lot of the country would be covered in water. They promised you that, and they don't think it's worthy on following up on, because we / other politicians / journalists / the media don't fucking press it. Press them on it. So what do we expect at the end of the day? This leader of this party, of this government that's overseen all of this, has been away at a prime ministerial retreat in Shevening near Sevenoaks, Kent, the Chequers place. He's been working from there, like basically a big posh country house that they go on retreat to and shit like that. It's just Donald Trump 2.0, but all the bad bits. So they had the environmental secretary on, George Eustice, to talk about the floods, Boris's lack of presence, you might say. And because obviously, as well, important context is Boris went and visited floods before the election. So when it was good for his image, he visited, and when it's not, he hasn't. That's generally the line people are going with, and the line that people are trying to defend. And this guy, George Eustice, defended it by saying he had to go during the election because of PERDA, which is like the rules that basically it means that the government can't make policy announcements or any announcements. And this guy is saying that because of PERDA, the government doesn't have any ministers. He said this on the BBC, okay? So according to him, during an election, the country stops working and no one employed by the government has to carry on doing their job. It's complete bullshit.
Yeah.
Like, it's again, we're getting over fucking, do you know what I mean, unhealed wounds, innit? But there's a guy from the government going onto the telly lying about why Boris has done something that he shouldn't have done, and the media, instead of pressing on it, instead of saying what about the pit review, what about all of this research, academic you could almost call it data. It's not even like opinion or fact. It's not sort of research into theories. It's like they've taken all of the facts and
there you go.
Summed it up. Yeah, it made a summary of it, sort of thing. And it reminds me, or it doesn't remind me, it tells me that this country in general, and it's not an attack on anyone personally, but we have a really, really, really poor base knowledge of what even the government in power now has done since they started. Like most people, everyone I've spoken to about the pit review hasn't heard of it. But in 2007 and 2008, they were talking about it all the time. But if they don't remind you of it, it goes out of your head.
Yeah.
And this might be why there might be people at home asking, why do they keep going at Corbyn? Because if they don't keep going at him, and all you see is him going to these places and talking to people, you might start to come around to him, and you might start to regret your decision. And they need to be 2 years into this government before they can let you start doing that. And don't worry, in 10 years' time, 20 years' time, this very BBC will be telling us about the great leader that we never had in Corbyn, etc. But whilst Boris is under the spotlight, you will always notice Corbyn is in the news more. And I just want people at home to bear that in mind. If people are slandering Corbyn for something that's got nothing to do with him as leader of the opposition, go on that web page and just scroll down once, just that little first click, and I guarantee you underneath that big spread is what they're covering up, what they're trying to bury.
Do you click on it though? Because then you give them ad revenue.
Well, this is it. This is another big up. I've got to big up Jack, mate. You've probably heard of him if you're on YouTube watching me, and he's secretly my favourite YouTuber. I bet he's like a really big fan. No, but he started this big Twitter hashtag that was basically like, he was like, I was going to do a giveaway and do like retweets and follow me, but he was like, instead, block the sun on Twitter and then tweet me saying hashtag block the sun out or something like that. And 6,000 of his followers. Yeah. Oh, you probably saw it trending in it yesterday. And he got 6,000 of his followers to block the sun. And that is as soon as I saw it, I wish I had his phone number in it, because that is it. That is exactly what people need to do. Yeah, 100%. Big up Jack, mate. Taking action. And that's what you got to do, because from what I've told you about the floods and that, you're going to have to come to people, like, not necessarily me. I mean, there's plenty of fucking legitimate voices out there. They're just hard to find. But please take everything you see on the news with a pinch of salt and double check it. If you're sitting there on a fag break, or you're sitting in your car waiting for your mates and you're just scrolling, bro, you've got the time. You've got the time to just click on Google and just double check that. Just read the same story but on a different website, and
or
just
3
something
or
like
4.
that. Yeah, it's worth it, bruv. You feel better for it. Like, it's just reading. It's not that mad, innit?
Like,
it's
research skills, isn't it?
Yeah, it's basic. Like you say, it's basic research skills. This isn't, because when I first started to get into it, I was pretty like, it was pretty daunting, thinking like, fucking hell, like, I've never really done anything academic. Like, am I going to be able to keep up? Am I going to be able to read a 100-page report? But bruv, like, it's just reading.
It is,
like, you spent the first 16 years of your life forcefully doing it every day, innit? Like, whether you can read well or not doesn't matter, because you're reading it on a laptop or a computer. If there's something you don't understand, you should Google it. Yeah.
And you shouldn't ever trust just one newspaper, even if it's the newspaper that tells you everything you want to hear. Yeah. Like, someone did tell me that, innit?
Yeah, the big H.
The big H. No, but it's true though. When you do start to
big
read
H,
the same,
2016.
No, but when you do start to read it, like, in different lights. Just the tone that someone even like.
You start to realise the truth in the middle of it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, even things we talk about on here, like go and read it somewhere else.
Yeah,
well.
bro.
Do you know what I mean?
Take my word for it that it's interesting, but don't take my word for it full stop. Don't take what I've said and repeat it as your answer to anything. Take what we say and what other people say and make that, turn that, into a question. Don't turn that into what you're just going to say at work tomorrow. So when I say the BBC doesn't do this, the next time someone asks you about the BBC, don't just repeat word for word what I've said, because you won't be able to truly believe it, and therefore you won't be able to really argue your point. Like you sort of have to go away, read about things, and bruv, like it don't click straight away. Like I'm a slow learner, I'm a slow reader, I'm a slow writer, innit? Like I'm dyslexic and ADHD. It is hard, but it clicks. Like, and everything suddenly you watch the news, and when you first get into politics, when you first get interested, and you first start to not even say politics, but when you first start to realise that the media is full of shit, you watch it and you just get angry. You just get pissed off. You just get riled up. But the more you read, the more you understand, the more you can sit and watch it calmly, take the truth from it, and later on when you're bored, you'll be like, yeah, I'll give that a little Google, find out what happened. And we've got to make it normal to be a little bit more thorough. And Facebook absolutely shocks me for the amount of people that I see sharing something, and someone will comment saying, you clearly didn't read the headline because it actually disagrees with you, and they're like, and then they delete the post. Bruv, you owe it to people you know, people you chat to. You've got to remember, that if you read a lie and you repeat that lie to someone, you've lied to someone. We can't disengage from the fact that, like, oh, don't shoot the messenger because you've chosen to carry that message. Someone hasn't paid you to send that message. You've taken that and you've given that, and you're indoctrinating other people into whatever.
That's the other thing with like what you said about going away and doing your research so you can actually bring facts to the argument. Like, by doing that, you're more likely to actually convince someone as well. Rather than, do you know what I mean? If you're having a debate with someone
my guy said that. Oh, but my guy said that. It doesn't really get anywhere.
No, but if you've got facts, you can actually bring someone round to like your way of thinking because you've actually got facts.
An easy way for people to get their head round it might be football. I mean, everyone that I know, you're either a little bit into politics or a little bit into football. There's no one that has absolutely no knowledge of either in it. So we've all seen people debate football. If you've got a team, or your dad's a proper old school Northern football fan, don't have it off no one that their team ain't the best, etc. You watch, if you as an Arsenal fan, you two as Arsenal fans, me as Liverpool fans, I could just sit here and go, I think Liverpool's the best team in the world, and you could go, well, I think Lacazette's better than Firmino, and I could say, well, I think Firmino's better than Aubameyang. That argument isn't
Aubameyang. Is that a little dig? Is it?
It might be. No. And Ketty is better. What? No, I'm joking. Big up Eddie and Ketty, baller. Unlucky with that finish on the weekend, isn't it, against Everton? I forgot what I was saying.
Basically, got their bias.
And if you just shout that bias at people, if I just say, I think Liverpool's that, you think Arsenal's that, I think he's that, you think he's that, we're never going to change each other's mind.
No, exactly.
All we're doing is bringing our thing on and just wearing it, and just being like, this is my side.
Or actually getting closer to the truth, which is the main thing. Do you
exactly.
know what I
mean? Exactly. You don't get any closer.
Like, giving up my own ego in that sense of certain beliefs that I had as well, and just listening to other people and trying to find what the truth was, changed my mind so much. Do you know what I mean? Like,
I feel like that on a lot of subjects.
Do you know what I mean? Like, with, I don't know, like, even when you were saying about certain things with, when we were talking about leave versus remain. Like, when that was all going on, in my head, it was all remain. But certain things that you were saying about certain, like, corruption within the union and stuff like that. Things that I hadn't thought of.
It makes you less of like an extreme Remainer or an extreme
like,
leaver.
If you've just got that sort of, what's the name, caveman head, like,
This my side, that your side, fight me. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. You'll never find actually what the truth is. Do you know what I mean? If you don't allow yourself to at least just listen and go and do research on certain things.
Yeah, bruv, and it ain't that mad. Like, it ain't that mad to admit that you're wrong.
No, exactly.
Like, and take this from someone that puts their neck on the line over everything. Well, used to. Like, one day you've got to man up and just be like, yeah, maybe I was just saying that from the heart, not from the head. Do you know what I mean? And the same, like with you're saying about getting to the truth is, say if I'll take it back to the football analogy, if we was arguing about Firmino and a Aubameyang, and let's say Lacazette to excuse the puns, innit? Firmino and Lacazette. If you were to say to me, if you was to say to me that, oh, no. If you look at where Firmino gets into his positions and Lacazette's actually got a better conversion rate here, and Lacazette in Arsenal, those opportunities crop up more, so he's more useful in that sense. That's going to make me think, oh, maybe I haven't looked at Lacazette like that. And it's like, it's very hard to do. Like, it's very easy for me to sit there and just say, like, just sit there and listen. Don't argue your point in that, because I'm someone that will cry when it comes to politics, innit? The whole, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I do wear my emotions on my sleeve when it comes to it, but that doesn't make it the right thing to do.
Yeah.
And there's a difference between holding someone to account for what they've done and getting enraged about it. Because, like, there is a big thing in this country about being respectful and kind in politics and that, but that's only ever played into the powerful's hand. That's never played into the people's hand. Being angry and emotional is what puts a boot up their asses, because if you're not and you're placid, then everything just kind of gets left. But when we're talking with each other, we've got to remember that, like, someone who, like a Labour MP, if you voted Tory, we've still got more in common than me and that Labour MP. Do you know what I mean? Like, we've got stuff in common because we're people. We've had similar upbringings where, like, the same cultures affected us, and we watched the same programs when we was younger, etc., etc., etc. Just because someone agrees with you economically, say like a Labour MP would be with me, doesn't mean that they're the same as you. And likewise, just because someone's got a different opinion to you economically, not like person to person, doesn't mean that they're that different to you. It usually means that they have a different source of information. Like 99% of the time, if everyone had the same source of information, they'd come to the same opinion. But
propaganda.
Yeah, exactly. And this is where propaganda takes hold, and this is where it gets tricky, because if I'm chatting to someone and someone chats propaganda back to me, that rolls me up straight away. I'm like, bruv, don't fucking talk headlines to me, innit? Like, I'm not a div. Like, don't. And it insults me, innit? Because I'm telling you something that I've gone and found out myself, and you're just repeating something someone's told you that you don't understand as like a gotcha. And like, we need to get out of this, like, every argument's a gotcha opportunity. It ain't an opportunity to 1-0. It's an opportunity to bring someone closer to you, innit?
As well.
Yeah. It's like, it's like that Darryl Davis that was on Joe Rogan recently, the guy that hugs KKK members to simplify it. Yeah. And bro, like, when you watch that, like, you're actually just like, fucking wow, are we fucking negative, man? Like,
and it was the patience he took with everyone in it.
Yes. Someone that could have actually been racist to him, to his face, and he builds a friendship up with them. And we ain't talking someone saying, you need to go home, which is horrible. And it would make you feel fucking awful. But, like, we're talking like 60s, 70s, rural America, first ever black guy they've seen, and he's just part of a band and shit like that. Like, that's deep shit. And I'd recommend you go and watch that, because that in itself sort of knocked me down a couple pegs. And I was like, wow, do I go about things the wrong way sometimes? Like,
that's the thing. If it's just two people bashing their heads against each other, like you're saying, caveman,
no one comes out better off.
Nothing, no.
Both people sort of come off with the same, like, I've said what I wanted to say, and nothing changes. And at the moment with the BBC, and the BBC are getting away with it because the left are attacking them quite rightly, the right are attacking them quite rightly, and the left and right, not political institution wise, not Labour and Tories, but I mean the people, left and right voters, aren't realising that, again, like most things, there's a common enemy, and it usually ties into your class.
Yeah.
And that common enemy is the way that the BBC is being run. And it's being run against the working class. It doesn't matter whether you're left or right wing. It isn't working in your interests either way. And things like this, like not holding Johnson to account, but slandering Corbyn for just going and visiting some people, in it, like not even a big splash, in it. Like if there weren't cameras there, he wouldn't have asked for cameras to be there, in it. Yeah. Trust me.
Yeah.
People need to step back. The vote has happened, innit? You don't need to prove that you've got Boris's back anymore, innit? You don't need to sort of brush off what someone did because he's on your side anymore, innit? Like, we've all got to be honest, because it's just all of our livelihoods now. It ain't about who wins and who gets a decent MP's job and shit like that.
Yeah.
The fact of the matter is we're being spun, and whether you support, and it's, you know, again, it's very easy for me to say because the BBC is very much not pro right wing, but pro Johnson and anti Corbyn. So it's easy for me to see it and be like, why can't you all just see what I'm seeing?
Yeah.
But I'd like to think that I could admit that a pro Corbyn media thing is pro Corbyn, and I don't think I'd have a problem admitting that. But because it's so polarising, the issue with the BBC, people almost don't want to drop their stance, and they don't want to, like, open up in case that's when the BBC finally takes over and makes everything left wing, or vice versa, innit? And like, we need to build an element of trust back up between conversations, and by doing your own research, by going finding out real facts and that, people start to trust you a little bit. Like, when we was at school and that, and I was just a ranty boy, people would listen, half laugh at me, half laugh with me, but they wouldn't believe me.
Yeah.
Because it's just the rantings of a crazy guy, innit? But as soon as people started realising that, say, like, just take like my Facebook feed a few years ago, not this election, but like 2017 election. Like, after the election, I had like 10 to 20 people message me individually. Some I knew, some I didn't, and were like, literally, I've never been into politics till I found your page and shit, and you were the one that made me vote this way, or you encouraged me to, rah, rah, rah. But it's like, with, I don't know, it's hard, because again, I influence people my way, so it's hard for me to like look at it. But that's because people started to realise that I was coming with facts that weren't even aired on the news until 3 weeks later, and everyone comes into work and goes blah blah blah, and they're thinking, hang on, that boy was talking about that a few weeks ago, innit? And we need to start. That's I guess what I'm trying to say is that's the proof of the pudding, that I'm not right about everything, but just through basic research, I never went to uni, I don't know politics, like I haven't been taught journalism, but just basic research, basic interest, and persuading myself not to be lazy about it means that I can offer people knowledge in that they're not getting off of something that costs 200 quid, 140 quid a year, I think it is for BBC.
Subscribe to Yak Chat.
Well, yeah, exactly. Subscribe, it's fucking free. It's a bargain. No. But likewise with my channel, other channels, right wing channels, left wing channels, subscribe to them if they're sort of talking from their own mind. Obviously, some of them are just B-Tech reporters, in it, just trying to get a career in it. They're just. Yeah, let's not get into, because some YouTubers just fucking chat breeze. Like, some of the things about like the Australian bushfires and that. Paul Watson. Oh no, I don't want to call him out because he works for InfoWars, man.
It's too late.
Fuck you, Paul Watson. On a serious level, fuck Paul Watson. But big up Alex Jones and the InfoWars and that, because again. Yeah, like, seriously, like, that guy fucking puts his neck on the line, innit? And when I say it, I mean metaphorically. his head is on the guillotine physically. Like, that guy could get dropped at any minute, and I reckon the second he stops being so vigilant about it, you might see that pop up on Twitter, innit? Alex Jones has died in the woods from mysterious circumstances. But people like Paul Watson, they're using the populism side of politics and turning that into what the reporting is, and it's all just like, all liberals are pink-haired vegan extremists, and all conservatives are good-looking, strong, well-built. Do you know what I mean? And it's just like identity politics.
Yeah.
There's so many people out there playing identity politics, and I think one thing you learn from us lot is that we don't really talk through our identities, innit? Like, we kind of just look at things as honestly as possible, innit? Like, we're just not them kind of people, innit?
That's one of the things that was like, I just sort of looked at, there's one of these channels, and it was like they were talking about things, but like saying, you wouldn't want to do that, Labour, it's really childish in the way they're going about it, like, that, smell it. Who is it? There's a girl, a blonde girl, and some guy, like, they did some Tory thing.
Andre Walker and Emily Hewitson.
I don't know who.
That's who it was. I don't know if
that's. Anyway, I just remember watching a video, and like. But actually,
it was all just like, you don't want to be like those communists.
Yeah, but actually
communists smell.
Yeah, but
and it's
actually
just like
doing
you're
that,
watering it down so much.
And actually doing that, obviously, I don't think people really would care that much about what they're doing, but actually think about what you're doing to kids' minds.
100%.
Do you know what I mean? Like, actually think what you're doing to these kids, man.
100%. Making them.
Actually think what you're doing to these kids, man. Like,
making their brains mushy, because you're making everything. You're blurring the lines between the seriousness and the sort of satirical side.
That can actually only be bad for everyone. Mm-hmm. Like, that's going to come back and bite you in the arse.
Well, that's like I said about, you've got to think, when you repeat a headline that you don't understand to someone, you're lying. Is that like, and that comes into like with that channel, like, they might find it funny, but at the end of the day, Corbyn, Labour isn't communist. At the end of the day, rah. Like, it's not really like an opinion or a debate or just something you disagree with because you agree with him. Like, it's like me just sitting there and just being like, I don't know, Boris Johnson kills non-whites.
Yeah.
Like, I've just assumed that.
Yeah.
And if I sat there repeating it, I would be lying. Yeah. There's no other that you can't dress it up as like, oh, but we're a right wing channel, or oh, but we're a left wing channel, so you ought to give us a little bit of extra wiggle room. Like,
like, the thing is, this actually comes down to real people.
Yeah.
And like, there are actually some people out there that are that easy to manipulate.
Bro, just look at the far right rise amongst like white boys our age and that.
But
like,
look at what's happening though. Like, actually happens in the real world now. Like in Germany a couple of weeks ago. Yeah. You're telling me that wasn't some sort of brainwashing that occurred through... Do you know what I mean?
What happened?
Do you know what I say about like the guys that are going around shooting? Not, is it stabbed or shot up? There's a shisha bar, couple shisha bars.
Two shisha bars. A guy, a boy, not that old, been influenced by far right YouTube, and he actually, in his little manifesto, I can't remember names, so I won't say just in case they're wrong because it's quite bad. But it was a lot of mainstreamy sort of references and a lot of like things that people are just like, oh, that's just the right wing. It's not far right. That's just what the right's like. And it's not.
At what point does it come like they actually realise you're partially responsible for this?
But this
is
like
the whole thing with Caroline.
If someone from the far left shot a Jew, it would be Corbyn's fault.
Yeah.
1,000,000%. But people on the YouTube that are fueling all of these lies that basically, and I'm going to say it, like, if you get sucked up into that, it's fragility, innit? Like, it's fragile. You ain't strong if you're petrified of your Muslim doctor, innit? That's weak. You're a weak man, innit? You're not confident enough that if this impending race war started, that you'd win it. You're not confident in this superior race that you think you are. And not to get too deep into like far right ideology and that, but a lot of it, and a lot of it from the left as well, the furthest sort of points, their influence comes through fragile minds, depressed kids, etc., etc. Like, say, like, for me, admittedly, why I got into politics was because, I mean, I was just always one of those kids that asked a lot of questions, innit? Probably quite annoying when I was younger. But I always pondered things, and I always wondered why growing up on one street meant one thing, growing up on the street opposite meant another. What job your dad had meant how well you'd do. And and it just, things like that, obviously it makes a lot more sense now you're an adult, innit? But at that age, it confused me, and that built up a lot of anger. And I can't lie, like when I first got into politics, I was like, fucking eat the rich, fuck them, innit? Do you know what I mean? If it's going to be dog eat dog, I'd rather I survive, innit? But like, that's how I got into it. And I had to sort of, like, still eat the rich on the slide, but but I had to like lower myself into more of like a less reaction, more thought based. And it's exactly the same with the right. You see a picture of thousands of migrants flooding into Calais, and they say they're gonna take over, and the fragile mind goes, fuck, why the fuck is no one doing anything about this? Well, no one's doing anything. I can't believe no one's doing anything. It's all a leftist and suddenly you're all,
do you think that we should be do you think that we should be addressing that more when things like that come out, and say to people, look, this isn't actually the case? And like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but we need a decent media to do that.
No one's done that is actually what's exacerbated a lot.
100%, 100%. People always say, like, just, and like, I implore you in it to just look at the rise of fascism in Europe in the 30s and 40s and shit, and mirror that to what's going on now. And the silence from certain people silence is a killer. Like, if you don't stand up, then it carries on. Like, it sounds cliche, but it's cliche, and it's the sort of saying because it's always been true, and it always will be true, innit? Like, it's just, that is how humanity works. When people stand up, you're a lot more likely to answer to them, innit? And but it's difficult, because part of me sort of thinks that. And now I can also see why a lot of people give up, because we could say, oh, it's down to us. As long as we open up the conversations, we'll be all right. But most people will always watch the news more than they watch YouTube or whatever like that. At the moment, maybe one day that will switch when we're the older generation. But yeah, at the moment, most people watch that. And whilst they're sort of, and again, not to make it like left v right, but and if you don't admit to this is how I can tell you're lying to yourself in it, and you are looking through it with your ideology, is go back to any policy announcement, say from Labour during the election. They never get to fully explain what they were trying to say. They get another question. No. They're trying to not let them air the opinion out. Bro, someone far right, not just right wing, not just someone that has like a free market fucking economy idea, isn't it? Like that's what being a conservative is, isn't it? But the far right, they don't get interrupted, they don't get questioned, and then it gets left there.
Or it's just whoever shouts the loudest in the conversation.
Exactly.
Like it's like what's his name? Is it Femi?
The Remain guy.
Yeah. But I watched I don't really like follow any of them things too much, but I was watching a debate with it, and someone was just shouting at him. The guy was just bringing facts every time, and was just getting shouted at. And I read the comments, and they were like, someone was like, "Oh, he got owned, so and so." Like, it's not a game of Call of Duty, man.
This is it.
Like, it's actually just about facts. Do you know what I mean? You can't. It's not about getting owned. It's about trying to find truth that's going to benefit us as people and getting towards the bottom of something. A debate doesn't necessarily have a winner. No. Do you know what I mean?
But it does in America. And our politics is becoming Americanized, and now it is about debate club.
Who wins when one of them?
The idea of a debate club scares the shit out of me, because it's all about winning. It's not about, like you say, whether it's the truth or not. Yeah. And perfect example with Femi in it, like, he's very arch Remain, so like we do disagree on a lot. But one thing I will say is that a lot of people don't have answers for his facts, and they just resort to the, oh well, you're just a rah like they do with Labour. Oh, you're just a communist, and as the Labour Party member goes, oh no, but that's, and they're already butting in onto a next question, and it's left.
Then you think though about it, coming back to Akala, you know, one of those lyrics that stuck with me. They're just copying their leaders. You look at the way they conduct Parliament.
Yeah.
It's just they just like shouting at each
it's
other.
the way things are, so they
who
just
can get the
copy.
most laughs.
Yeah.
That's actually it.
Yeah.
It is actually just who can get the most laughs.
Don't it make you
looks
feel
like
physically
cavemen.
sick though? Don't it make you feel sick watching?
Like
all
literally,
that?
if you.
Oh. That's what a Labour MP called Laura Pidcock, who actually lost her seat in this election, but when she first joined, her first maiden speech in Parliament, and she said she was like, I feel like the classism, racism and misogyny just walking through these halls. She just says like it's just a part of the structure, and she said like it's actually really not a nice feeling, and everyone in the chambers is just sitting there like, how dare you question we invented Parliament? Are you questioning the way Britain does its law? And all of a sudden, and it's just like, bro,
It's like actually.
Come on,
you imagine if they
be
had
honest
like,
with yourself.
You imagine like if they had HR there, like they'd have a field day going through that. Do you know what I mean?
Bruv,
the way that they do, like the way they conduct that, and like the bullying that goes on.
Yeah,
It's actually mad.
I don't know if I've mentioned this before. I know I've mentioned it to you boys, but Richard Burgon said about Syria. And one of his ideas as deputy leader for Labour is that whilst Labour's in opposition, whenever there's like a call for an airstrike on a country or war or anything like that, if it's not a national emergency or UN backed, so if it's just a decision that the government's taken upon itself to attack someone, that Labour members should hold a vote so that Labour MPs know what their members want them to do. Instead of sort of being more influenced by the other side.
Yeah.
And everyone was bare going in at him like, oh, this is what you pay MPs for. And he was pretty fucking honest about it. And I appreciate it. Because he was like, you don't know the MPs like I do. And he said, like, you people need to stop being told that these MPs are smarter than them. Because they're not. Yeah. And he said, the day that we voted to bomb Syria on the bollocks chemical attack, and it is bollocks. We can get into that in another episode because that's a fucking absolute rabbit hole. But yeah, they faked an attack, blamed it on Assad, and that's the one where Trump and Theresa May just woke up the next day and bombed Syria without really asking anyone. And Richard Burgon said that in the bar in Parliament after that vote, people that voted to bomb this country didn't even know what the capital was.
Yeah, that's mad.
Bro, there's people on the street that know what the capital of Syria is. And you've got MPs voting on whether we should bomb it, and they haven't even done the due diligence to fucking Google Syria. Like, this is why we need to learn, and we need to build that trust amongst ourselves. Academics, scientists, all of these people, they aren't politicians.
Yeah.
So, like, as much as we shouldn't go down that sort of path of, like, destroy it all, unless that's your opinion, innit? Unless you're an anarchist or whatever, or someone on the right who likes small government. Yeah. We have not got to just get rid of them all and just stick fucking Tommy up there and he'll sort everyone out. Because then, do you know Ant Middleton, the SAS guy who like does all the programs and that? Well, he was doing an interview and someone was like, he said that he should be, he said he wants to be mayor of London. And they were like, well, what would you do then? And he'd be like, oh, just sort it out. And they were like, yeah, but like, what would you sort it out? How would you sort it out? And he was like, oh, I'll just go in there and sort them all out. And it's like, do you know what I mean? Like, we need to sort of, because they're ruling the people's conversation. Yeah. Politicians look at the people and they're trying to please that. Yeah. And so, like we said earlier when we were waiting to get picked up, they're like with the floods and the send short briefs and that, like they're trying to use the ignorance that they've given us as a way to simplify everything and make everything dumb and stupid and unaccountable. Yeah. Oh no, I was gonna say some crazy shit, but let's
I was on the edge of my seat, like.
Yes. Yeah. No. I can't. But before, it is still pretty bang on topic. Basically, on Question Time, we were talking about the left and right, and every week the left think that BBC Question Time was right sided, the right think it was left wing. Well, to be fair, in January, Fiona Bruce did actually admit that they do put more Tories in the crowd to reflect the voting stance of the country.
Right.
Doesn't really make sense for a debate.
No.
But we'll let that slide. It's not the worst thing they've done this week. But the audience producer... Oh, I don't attack the mic, mate. It's all right. Chill out. You know. Babies.
What are you fucking saying?
What you fuck? The audience producer, so the woman, that procures all the guests, etc., is a lady called Alison Fuller Pedley.
Don't look in the camera while you do that.
Alison Fuller Pedley. She's actually been found out. God damn it. I fucking love English names, man. So ridiculous. Well, she was found to be sharing Britain First posts.
The woman who does the procuring.
Yeah. So,
okay.
And she's on her Facebook. She was resharing Britain First posts. She's a member of the British Patriotic Front, which isn't as innocent as it sounds. Like I looked on the page, it's like extremely racist shit. Like every week there's a poll on whether they should hang Diane Abbott and shit, and it's all just like it's stig of the dump shit, innit? And in the past, there's been certain areas where they've held question time, and she's asked the local EDL reps, but not the local Tory or Labour reps. So she's trying to get that sort of ideology on there. And in this last week's episode, she had a woman called Sherry Peach on. Now, she came across as the average, innocent, blonde, 40-50 British housewife. So everybody watching... Her real name's Sherry Peach. Or Sherry Bothwell. She's married into Peach.
Oh, okay.
She's married into the Peach.
No, I was just wondering, because obviously, like, when you get these sort of people, like Tommy Robinson's not his real name, but it's made to sound more like...
Short, sharp, British, proper. Yeah. See, they're always... This is the thing. Like, if you're right wing, you've got to look at the guys telling you this shit. Be right wing. Before, I'm not questioning your economic opinion or anything like that, but just remember that these people, like you say, they change their names. They're trying to play into our natural thought.
Boris eating an English breakfast and that.
Yeah. So just always bear that in mind. The little image games that they play. But yeah, so she's this very normal looking, posh London accent, so relatable. Do you know what I mean? She didn't come across as like a girl from the estate. She came across as someone that's from London but has done well for herself. Yeah. And it's very relatable to most of the country. And she basically... before I go into her actual history, and I'll just read out... This isn't all of what she said, but this is the gist, yeah? And I quote, "At what point do we think this country's had enough? That we should close the borders, completely close the borders. Because it's got to the stage now, we've got no education, no schooling, no infrastructure. It's enough. We're sinking. Surely someone's got to see common sense and say, enough is enough. You got people flooding into this country that cannot speak English. I'm from London. In the health service, everything's written in different languages. How much is that costing?" I mean, fucking wow.
Fucking translator.
Not a lot.
www.google.com/translate.
In it. This is what I mean. And people going into the NHS.
There's probably some shitty Google
Yeah.
Exactly. Probably don't even make sense.
People are looking at like all the fucking dead bodies on the floor and they're going, that fucking sign's in French. That fucking sign. Have you bloody... Do you know what I mean? It's so ridiculous. Hold the fucking government to account, innit, man? Like, for goodness sake, y'all. But basically, yeah, she comes across as this very innocent woman. She says what she says, and as much as people like us might sort of scoff at that and be like, it's bloody stupid. I mean, for a start, it is. It's not stupid to ponder immigration or to ponder language barriers and shit like that, but what she said was factually incorrect, innit? So that's where you need to draw the line and be like, no, you said a lie.
Yeah.
But when you watch it and you see her and she comes across as someone that couldn't hurt a fly, and you think, now, do you know what? It's wrong, but you have to open up the conversation to all the views. I mean, we could go into the fact that that's how the Nazis got into power, but she's not quite a fascist. Oh, wait. But is she? Yes, she is. Fascismo. Sherry Peach, married to Roy Peach, former parliamentary candidate for the National Front, and herself stood twice under that banner. I will add she wasn't interrupted by the host. And no matter what, whether you're Conservative, Labour, Green, Lib Dems, if you're just asking a good question, you'll get interrupted. But if you're spouting absolute nonsense, they'll give it all the airtime that they need, and they won't question it.
See, like, I can understand this being like, if you're trying to open up the conversation as well, I can understand letting someone, well, pretty much an actor.
You've got to air it to put it down.
Like, I'm looking at 2 pictures of her here, like one at a protest and one of her sitting there. That to me is an actor.
Image.
So if you're getting an actor on there to represent this.
Bro, she was given somewhere to stay. She's not even from that area. She was invited down and put up in a hotel by the BBC.
Like, I'm all for opening the conversation with people like that, innit? Like,
yeah, 100%. I'd happily have people like that on here, so we could
them to
get to the bottom of it.
Yeah, exactly, and talk to them and tell them what is right and what isn't. Like, do you know what I mean? Show them where.
But give them some data and shit, and be like, no, this isn't my opinion. I agree that we should stop immigration if it did make us worse off or whatever, but that's just not the case, etc. 100%, I agree. You've got to bring people in to bring people closer to you, innit? You can't push people away and expect them to latch on to what you're saying. So yeah, that wasn't the end of the quote when I said how much does it cost, but she just goes on to fearmonger about her very obviously personal disdain for non-English. I'm going to talk you through the National Front a little bit, because not a lot of people our age will quite know how extreme they were. This isn't just like Free Tommy, Stop the Grooming Gang shit, which is at least seminally innocent, as much as I disagree with it. But this is from one of the old National Front manifestos. Just bear in mind who this sounds a little bit like. National Front, make Britain great again. 1. Stop immigration, start repatriation. 2. Crack down hard on disruptors in industry. Alright, remember, these people are totally against unions and unionisation. They aren't working class movements. 3. Get tough with criminals. One of those, I'll just get in and sort them out. Like, get tough on... 4. Ban the IRA. Get out of fucking Ireland then. You won't ban the IRA until you stop giving them a reason to exist, innit? It's like, all of these bloody Al-Qaedas keep popping up every time that we... 5. Repeal...
Can that be the thumbnail?
I shouldn't have done that. I forgot there's the camera.
You're going to be that new Michael guy.
Yeah. 5. Repeal the Abortion Act. So, that's a debate to be had with like spiritualists and religious people, and that I understand that some people disagree with it and some don't. But it just reminds you of the real purpose of these groups, in it. They're not there for people or to get people into power and shit. That's just the vehicle. They use estranged, lost, fragile... It sounds like I'm going at people, ignorant people, and they use that. Whatever they want, whatever pisses them off, they'll use to get into power. Much like Donald Trump and Boris. And in 1981, Nigel Fielding, it's actually really interesting read, and I do recommend it to everyone, even if like it not that interested in like stats and details and that. It's not so much about that. Like it's more of a book.
What's it called?
It's just Nigel Fielding, The National Front. And it was originally printed in 81, but reprinted a few years ago, so you could probably get it on bookstores and that. And it's well worth a read, because it is a bit of an eye-opener into how deeply fascist these groups are. So it was an extensive report into the day-to-day activities and that as well. So it's kind of like, it's quite personal and shit, which is quite good. And this is a quote about that research from Wikipedia. I apologise, it's from Wikipedia, but it's all sourced. I checked all the sources and that. And I quote, according to Fielding, The National Front's commitment to parliamentary democracy was not ideological but functional. During the 70s, the Front alleged that the UK's liberal democracy was bogus democracy and declared that it would forge a genuinely democratic political system, introducing public referenda on major issues. In making claims such as that true democracy is that which is representative of the will of the people, the latter being presented as a monolithic entity. What does that remind you of? I'll just say that again. The National Front's commitment to parliamentary democracy was not ideological but functional. During the 70s, the Front alleged that the UK's liberal democracy was bogus democracy and declared that it would forge a genuinely democratic political system, introducing public referenda on major issues. In making claims such as that true democracy is that which is representative of the will of the people. What does that sound like? Donald Trump's campaign, Boris's campaign, the Brexit campaign, they're all taking things from these old fucking fascist groups, innit? And do you know why? Because it taps into those fascists. Most people don't join the dots and it doesn't make them fascist. But fascists will see that and go, fuck, these cunts are on our side. Do you know what I mean? It's clever.
Who was it you were saying that? And it was the guy behind engineering a lot of their campaigns as well.
Oh, what, Dominic Cummings? Or
there was someone that you were saying was behind Nigel Farage and he was behind like something.
Oh, Steve Bannon. The fucking genius of the far right. Like, whether you disagree with him or not, I disagree with him on a lot. The guy is a bloody genius. And in a way, like, he's like what started this whole like anti-liberal thing, because everything he says, the news comes out, disagrees with, and the news ends up wrong. Because he's actually honest with his analysis. The National Front engaged in populist rhetoric. Fielding nevertheless believed that the essence of the National Front ideology is incompatible with democracy, and instead reflects on elitist tendency quite at odds with his populist rhetoric that is used to promote his message. So just like the Tories, Donald Trump, everything like that, they shout at the working class, but at no point have they ever proven or have they ever even really promised to improve the lives or to do things on the basis of the working class. They just paint it as that, the will of the people, etc., etc. Sort of, it's just like the election. Because of that messaging, as soon as Boris won, to a lot of people, politics was over. Boris has won, it's done now. We've got rid of the left. And you sort of think, and sort of, Corbyn must go. He was deep. He got, like, Corbyn, 10 million people. 1 in 6 people in this country voted for Corbyn, and only like 1 in 4 people in the country vote. A lot of people voted for Corbyn, innit?
How can you ever think that's a good thing anyway, to completely destroy the opposition that scrutinises your government?
But it's the messaging that creates that idea, that afterwards, that it's all done and done. We've won. We've got rid of the enemy.
That's it. The hashtags about losers and that. Like,
yeah. Oh, bruv, don't. Like... When you compare, like, I know not to go back to the election, but imagine the 13th of December if Labour had won. Imagine how positive that day would have been. You go on Facebook when the Tories win, all it is, oh, I hope these stupid little students shut up now, and the proper British people are speaking again. All of a sudden, within a week, like, hate crimes had spiked by like 100%, etc. And it's the messaging. It's that's not really how people feel, but the messaging makes it like that. And I'll go back to the National Front before we get to... Oh wait, I'll keep doing that. Sorry, boys. They claimed preservation of whites, not hatred of non-whites.
Right.
So I have to say this just to sort of be fair, innit? As much as we all know that it's just straight up racism, that we've got fucking people on BBC Question Time that are talking about race wars and shit, like. It's incredible, but they claim it's about the preservation of whites, etc., etc., but they're so closely linked to Nazi groups at the top. And what did the Nazis do? They killed their enemies. And as much as I'm sure loads of people in the comments are about to go crazy for me saying it, calling me a Holocaust denier, but you got to remember, it weren't just Jews killed in the Holocaust. The Jews weren't the only enemy. The Nazis sent everyone who opposed them to their communist, Jews, blacks, Asians, whoever they could get their hands on that didn't sit with them, they sent there. It's outward racism. It isn't a reaction to, do you know what I mean? That Ghana hasn't turned up at the shores of Dover. Do you know what I mean? And it's not like a fight or flight. Do you know what I mean? These people are choosing to feel that way. There's no real physical, real life push apart from, say, old people that have seen their towns completely change and they just blame it on the people that are now there rather than the local government that have sucked out the high street, etc., etc.
Or look at the situation and realise that you are in the same boat as these people.
Yeah,
like,
mate, we've got more in common with a working class bloke from Iraq than we have with Boris Johnson, innit? Yeah. People need to realise this. It's not that the world is globalised now. Flights, normal day-to-day flights have been going on since before we were all born, innit? Like, this isn't the...
And the more you fight against each other, the more you're attacking the symptoms of a problem. Like, it's not to say the problem, but you're not attacking the root of it. Do you know what I mean?
And that tree will only get stronger whilst we're quibbling with each other.
Over crumbs.
Yeah, that is it. That is it.
Fighting for crumbs of the cake that's been, like, split between them lot at the top.
Yeah, they've all got a nice slice. They've got their fingers in it, and we're going, oh, look, he put his fingers in it. There might be a crumb to go. Drip down economics.
And I'll fight you for it.
Yeah. There's actually a few good little books on that. We'll have to do a little book review actually. So.
And big up Akala as well. Go listen to Akala.
Yeah. Big up Akala. People like him, Loki, and that do a lot of work. Do you think that, I know we've kind of sort of half answered it, do you think that woman should be invited onto programs like the BBC, knowing not her opinion, not what she asked, but the fact that she's got ties to National Front?
I think it's difficult because obviously you want it to represent people that are actually out there in society, so people can have the watch people debate things.
But I thought the world was opposed to fascism, or secretly.
But this is the thing. Like,
has Europe always been fascist as fuck, and Hitler acted on it?
Well, this is the thing. I think people should be like given, like, everyone has the right to an opinion. Yeah, of course. I agree with free speech. Yeah. In its entirety, whether I agree with what they're saying or what their opinions are or not, I do agree to your right to have an opinion. Yeah,
what she said, she's got full right to ask.
But in the way that they have allowed her to just rant.
Without saying she's a member of National Front. She might say this, but she is actually part of a Nazi group.
It's just weird that they would make her an actor in that way. Like, I'm looking at 2 pictures of her here.
It's bare different, isn't it?
Yeah.
She looks
one in a pink jumper looks well cuddly.
Looks like a mum.
Looks like my mum.
Yeah. No, but that's it. She does. Everyone looks at that and they've got.
I've actually got a white mum as well, by the way.
Yeah,
just so you know. Yeah. People probably watching it.
Context, like, what the fuck?
No, mate, honestly, I won't go into it, but yeah, when I showed someone a picture of my granddad from the war the other day, he just couldn't comprehend it. Wait, hold on, wait, what? You've got a white granddad? Oh, yeah.
yeah.
But no, I'm looking at 2 pictures of her here. Yeah, one, literally, she looks like my mum, innit? And the other one looks like someone that would slap me on my face just for being brown. Like, it's mad. Like, that they've allowed it. Like, it's just weird that they've done that.
Because they could do it, in my opinion, if they give the context. Like, yeah, this is what she thought, this is what she asked, but she's also stood for election for Nazi parties. So take with that what you will.
But it's just creepy in the way that you've come across and pretended to be someone that you're not, and
just an average hospital using mum,
and just saying what everyone else is thinking.
Oh, don't.
Do you know what I mean? That's
on Twitter.
That's what it's come across as.
Yep.
And that's weird.
Yep. On Twitter, all you see is like, yeah, but that's what the majority of people think. Didn't you see the election results? And it's just like, face fucking palm. But again, it goes back to the people think it's all done and dusted now. They think that everything that Boris promised is getting carried out already, and we're going to get looked after. The lefties are gone forever. Corbyn should now just quit politics and just go and die in a hole because he lost an election. Got more votes than Blair, Cameron and Miliband. But yeah, let's not get into that. Let's get back to
whether you reckon she should be allowed on.
But yeah, I think she should be allowed on. I think everyone should be allowed on. But the BBC should have to start airing everybody's opinion and not interrupting it. Context should be given. Who they are, their political allegiances, etc., etc. Because, like, if a Tory comes on and talks about Tory shit, I'm not that offended. Even if I disagree with it. No, I'd say not that offended. I'm not offended at all.
Yeah, but you know who
because
they are.
Yeah, and I know that they're speaking from their opinion and they probably researched it and shit. But when it's just like you say, they've turned her from a political activist into an actor.
Yeah,
she's acting as if she has no political ties when she's got ties to the biggest fucking Nazi party this country's ever seen. Like, and when I say Nazi party, I don't say that lightly.
No, yeah.
Genuinely Nazi party. Not just like EDL that is against Islam, as much as I don't agree with their ideology. They're not Nazis. That's not they're civic nationalists. They don't believe in removing people from the country, etc. These guys do. They want to get rid of non-English, non-whites.
Do you know what the thing is as well? If you put that into context, what they've done there, yeah, like an actor on a national TV show going out there. Like, look at what happens when they go over to North Korea. What do? They employ actors to stand in a store and pretend to buy something, but the stock then goes back on the shelf like nothing ever. Do you know what I mean? People will laugh at that, yeah, but will be, like you say, willfully misled and misinformed
when it's something as serious as politics.
Yeah, and when it's happening on our TV, you're literally watching propaganda, watching that. Yeah. And that's scary.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
And that goes for any opinion. Any opinion they give without context is propaganda. That's how it works. But to take this back to, I mean, I wrote this little question down as well to ask ourselves and those at home and those out. Or, do you know what I mean? I don't discriminate. A little, before we wrap up, I'm just going to ask you a question. Does it worry you that a party backed by the American guys, Steve Bannon, etc., that use National Front lingo, does it worry you that they use those messages? And does it worry you that they're now used in British elections alongside Nazi party wink nudges and outright copying methods? Ask yourself that over the next week. And if it does worry you, you kind of owe it to yourself and to everyone around you to go and learn a little bit about how the Nazis came to power. Because they came to power semi-democratically, innit? And all they did was...
Party of the people, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, quickly...
Well, the promise was to switch around the economics of Germany.
Yep.
And that's what the whole promise was based on.
Yep. And then it slowly snowballed into a complete ideology. But yeah, I mean... Quickly, before we wrap up, the rise of Hitler was made possible because of something called Article 48 of the Weimar Constitution, which allowed the executive government to bypass Parliament with emergency powers. Let's look at page 48 of the Tory manifesto, and I quote, "We will get rid of the Fixed Term Parliament Act." That's the act that forces parliaments to have an election every 4 years. So if they got rid of that, and they haven't written what they'd replace it with, so that means that it's not a good thing that they'd replace it with, otherwise they'd try and sell that as well. So they're going to get rid of that. That's called a dictatorship in Latin America countries.
And we've just lost the European Court as well, the Supreme Court above our country.
Exactly.
Like, we've just lost that.
Exactly. That's a good point to make as well. And I quote, "Update parliamentary boundaries." If you look at, they're basically extending boundaries, so there's less seats. It gives the Tories like plus 80 seats and Labour like minus 50. It's an obvious reason why they're pushing for that. They will continue first past the post, the most outdated and stupid political system, because it suits them, because it means that the countryside residencies of Tory voters have more power than millions of city voters. Etc., etc. The people that actually bear the brunt of real life rather than people separated from it.
Just bear in mind
entirely.
as well, the people that have those ideologies, like, or opposing ideologies, are never going to be able to move to these areas and actually upset that vote.
Exactly. They move. The young people move from those areas to the cities because there's no economy.
And their voice gets less heard.
Yeah, exactly. And the next one, voter ID. that basically means that poor people, homeless people, travellers, anyone like that won't be able to vote anymore. Typical Labour voters. I don't like saying things like that, but statistically it's true, isn't it? We will not proceed with the second stage of Leveson. Yeah. I will not go into Leveson. There's some fucking homework for you. Google it. Leveson inquiry.
You're going to have to Google it as well, because the newspapers ain't going to be reporting that
yeah. You'll have to Google that. Don't read it off the papers, innit? Like, but it's probably got something on Wikipedia, to be honest. But yeah, that'll blow your mind.
Quick summary.
Basically, it's a report and some suggestions into democratizing the media, holding them to account. I think there's like new powers that would enable people to take them to court easier, etc. Basically, it would put the power of truth back into our hands, and it would force them to. And that, the same goes for tabloids as well. It would, a lot of the things with tabloids, sort of new laws to introduce so that they can't just outright lie all the time and get away with it. The next one, we will update the Human Rights Act, but they haven't offered any pluses, which means that they'll be taken away from it. Again, you've got to get used to this political speak. If they're not willing to go through the details of their policy, it's because you wouldn't like the details.
It's the entire manifesto again, isn't it?
Yep.
Like that thing.
Yep. Yeah.
You know
compared to the Labour one's too thick. No. Labour told you everything that you needed to know about every policy, because realistically, that's what people should be looking for in politics. The next one, look at judicial review, to stop it being used politically. A judicial review, politically, is the only non-physical power that the people of a country has. It basically means that we can take the government to court. Yeah. And Michael Gove, I believe, is personally instructed at the moment to find ways to get out of that, so that we actually can't hold a government with no fixed parliamentary date to account. And the last thing, this ties into the whole how the Nazis came into power, the Leveson inquiry. This kind of ties it all up. And how I asked you that question on, does it worry you that they're using fascist speak? They're using page 48, which was the same 48 which enabled Hitler, and it's very similar content and shit like that. Google the big lie Nazis. Forget Leveson and all that. Google the big lie Nazis, and the picture will paint itself for you. Just read through how they believed the Joseph Goebbels, basically the propaganda artist for the Nazi party. Read his ideas of how you get into power without being good, basically. And it's our government, which is pretty scary. And it again, you don't look at this like a lefty saying this.
Yeah.
If you're right wing, go and take this. Go and look at it yourself, innit? And it will shock you, bro. It shocks me as a human, innit? Not as a socialist or
not
whatever.
Even like you're calling conservatives Nazis. You're actually saying like,
go
and look at this, because this is no good for anyone.
Exactly. These are this individual conservative party, not conservative economics. We can have that debate all day, innit? And I know that a lot of people can shut me up about it.
And just bear in mind as well,
is Nazi shit. We all don't like the Nazis, don't we? Like, are we getting to this point where we actually have to ask this question? Like, do you actually prefer that to a bit of public investment? Like, are we really getting to that point now? And Google the big lie. There was also a report in 2018 that highlighted this, that with the a couple of old boys basically said that were alive during the wars, came out and said that these times feel eerily like the years leading up to the world wars. And yeah, bro, just Google the big lie and your mind will be blown.
The thing you've got to remember with this stuff as well,
it's a mirror image.
The thing you've got to remember with this stuff as well is, like we said last week, once the precedent's set, like, if it benefits you right
now, it's
the
new normal.
If it benefits you right now because it's the popular sort of, your opinion is like, that's what's in power at the minute. Do you know what I mean? If you voted Tory,
I like free market capitalism, so I have to vote the fascists in. Doesn't have to be like that. But
just remember that once that's set in place, like, it might not be in your favour one day, innit?
Well, this is it.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
it was a Jewish
could
saying.
Get in and go wild with it. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? It could be anyone could get in and go wild with the power that you're handing to these people. Just remember, once that's in, like, set in stone.
Yeah.
That's for anyone then. Do you know what I mean?
Bro, someone wrote about the Holocaust with that, and they said, first they attacked the journalists, we said nothing. Then they attacked the thing, they said nothing. Then they attacked the socialists, we said nothing. Then they attacked the communists, we said nothing. Then they attacked the Jews, we said nothing. And then we had no one to ask to help us. Yeah. And the Holocaust happened. It's as easy as that. It's as easy as political theory, as long as the people are ignorant. Yeah. Like, again, it sounds cliche and mad and Hollywood and all that, but it's so simple because it's so true.
Because that's what it comes back to. It's not about being a winner. Do you know who wins? Like, we don't win.
No,
do you know what I mean?
No.
We as people, regardless, do not win from this. Conservative voters don't win through this conservative government. Exactly. Like, these sort of policies and things coming in do not benefit us as people, regardless of your political ideologies, regardless of your race, colour, religion, whatever. Yeah. We actually all get hit with the same fucking shit, do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah. So, ponder what we've said today. Google the big lie. Google Leveson inquiry if you're feeling like an extra bit of homework.
Go and chat to someone with a different opinion from you as well.
Yeah, bro. If you're left wing, go fucking search up some right wing YouTube and vice versa, innit? You learn a lot about yourself as well sometimes.
And read a different story in a different newspaper as well, just to calibrate your mind as to what you're reading. Do you know what I mean?
And because we are getting to the stage where we just need to value decent journalism rather than the journalists' opinions. But yeah, on that note, thanks, boys.
Yeah, bless.
It's been a good old chat. Thanks everyone at home. He's been Newt. He's been H. I've been Yak. I hope you've been yourself. We'll see you next week.
Yeah, big up.
Big up.
Like, comment, subscribe.
Yeah, fucking like, comment, subscribe. Please.
Can't take no more.
Yeah. We need the money.
It's fucking cold in
We're going to put adverts on soon.
Somebody whack that heater on.
Yeah. Actually, no, please. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, sweet. Thank you, everyone.